Continuamos con el coloquio Principales retos turísticos para 2012. Visión de grandes líderes empresariales, que se desarrollará en inglés con la participación de Miguel Fluchá, presidente de Iberostar Hotel Group; Michael Frenzel, presidente del Consejo Ejecutivo de TUI AG; Antonio Vázquez, presidente de IAG y presidente de Iberia Líneas Aéreas de España; Charles Petruccelli, expresidente de American Express Global Services; José Antonio Tazón, chairman de Amadeus; y Mariano Pérez Claver, presidente de NH Hoteles. Modera Taleb Rifai, secretario general de la Organización Mundial del Turismo.
Good morning, dear friends. Morning, dear friends. We're up to a very, very exciting panel with us now. I would say, with great humility, it's the panel of the heavyweights. But I must start by confessing something to you all. I'm a little bit nervous for two reasons. One is I'm used to speak and deliver speeches from that podium, and I can do it well. This is the first time in my life I conduct a panel, so please forgive me. The second thing is I'm used to deal with wonderful ministers, and I know how to deal with them. They know me, I know them. This group is a group of great achievers and wonderful business people that have shaped the form of this industry. So you will have to forgive any shortcomings that I may commit in conducting this panel. Having said that, we will go directly into the subject matter of this panel. Let me say what are the objectives of this panel. This panel is supposed to be including some of the most important doers, makers, and shakers of this industry. The hospitality industry, the aviation industry, and the ones that really make it happen all together, the travel agencies and the movers of the people. And we are expected to cover three very important issues. The first issue is we would like to hear from them. What is their analysis really of where we are now? And at the end of 2011, the beginning of 2012, are we really having the right analysis, and are we really all seeing eye to eye, or are there different opinions about this? The second point that needs to be covered in this panel in a little bit over an hour is what do these prominent businessmen like to see governments doing? We've heard from ministers earlier, and Sebastian was extremely successful. I hope I could do as good as you did, Sebastian, in dealing with a crowd that is not your crowd as well. What would you like to see governments doing? We keep talking about private-public partnership. Governments keep repeating it. You keep demanding it. But do we really know what it is? And how does it translate into real action on the ground? The third issue concerns this distinguished panel, which is for them to tell us what they are ready to do. What are the businesses prepared to do? And how do you see your role in the middle of all these difficult situations? These are the three elements that are going to be the backbone of our panel. But in order to be concrete about them, let us start by posing the questions. I will pose three very generic questions, and then I would, with your permission, ask you to respond to them. And I have a suggestion to have us respond to them in groups so that we would make it more interactive. The shorter your response are, the quicker I would go back to you on questions, and the more lively this can be. Question number one. In face of increased economic uncertainty, high unemployment, and very shaky consumer confidence apparent, how do you see the sector moving into 2012, and what are the main challenges ahead? Question number 2, if it were you in the driver's seat, what are the strategies, the main outlines of the strategies that you would put? And let's try to be as concrete as possible. Number 3, where do you see the future growth areas and opportunities of this industry? It is clear that the existing models have to be revisited. How do you see us moving into the future, and what are the new areas that we should be looking at? These are the 3 generic questions. And in order to be able to respond to them, I will go directly now into some questions. With us is Miguel Flutza. That shows how limited my Spanish ability to pronounce is. And Marino Perez Claver. 2 great hotels, Iberostar Hotel Group and NH Hotel. And they are really, really success stories, not only in Spain, and not only in Europe, but all over the world. So I'm going to pose to both of you 2 direct questions along those lines, and please feel free to respond in each way where you are, for both of you. Has the current economic situation changed your plans, investment expansions? What has it done to you? And if so, in what ways? And do you see changes in the consumer's attitude, becoming more cost-conscious? They do normally become more cost-conscious in moments of crisis. Mm-hmm. How do you expect this to affect your business plans, your investments, your expansion, and your future plans? Miguel, can I start with you?
Why not?
Yeah.
This crisis is the worst crisis that we have all lived, especially for the uncertainty. It was difficult also how deep was going to be, and still we can say how deep is going to be. However, we must admit that our industry is one of the less affected by the crisis. We have got, of course,
how is that?
we have got some pressure on pricing, but we have been able to go out with the crisis without big destroyment of employment. We are keeping, most of the companies, the amount of staff that we had at the beginning, which is a big achievement and a big satisfaction.
You did not have to lay out?
We didn't have to lay out people in our company. And this has been a good exercise to analyze our companies, because with the time of boom, everything is possible and the results are good, but you know how much profits you make, but you don't know how much profit you don't make because of your mistakes. And I believe this has been a tremendous exercise. We have analyzed the company. We have analyzed all details of the company. We have changed our systems, because today there is a big change, with everybody knows, on the sales side. The internet has affected most of the business. You know, in the resort hotels, which is where we are, until now, we had, 3 years ago, maybe 2% of bookings in internet or online. Today, we are talking about 20, 22. And we see that this is going to be a procedure which will grow in the next years, and probably in the next 3-4 years, we will have 50% of our business will come from the tour operators, which will continue to be there, and 50% which will come from the online business. So this is making a change in the way that we have to invest a lot in systems, that we have to create and employ young people who understand this business, because you can have a very good system, but if you are not accurate on your offers, if you are not accurate how the timing to make the offers and how to manage the yield, you are lost. And now we have, during many years, and I am in this industry for many years, We were giving the hands with the tour operators when we signed the contracts, and then you forget everything. Now we have to fight every week for your income. And as you know, in a business, the most important thing is not to cut corners. To cut corners, everybody knows how to do it. The main success of a business, and in the situation of today, is to be able to increase your income. And there is where you have to dedicate all your efforts in order to be here today, tomorrow, and in the future. I don't know if in these questions you were asking me how this has affected in different countries, or is not the question?
No, I would want to come back to you on what have you seen in terms of changes in consumers' attitude and consumers' behavior. But maybe I would like to go back to Mr. Claver from NH and to respond to the same first question and see what has changed really in your business model.
Well, I think when the general scenario changed, what manager and chairman and board of the company should do is to move in the new direction. I think we are living in a dramatic change, not only from a global point of view. The X of the world is changing. It's going from the west to the east. It's clear. Combined with a financial crisis in Europe, which is being the more and more stronger. This means that in our business, what we have to do is to reshape the strategy in terms of growing by a philosophy asset light, not investing, not spending capital of the company, by taking care of debt. That is very dangerous at this stage. And moreover, by growing in those markets which are the emerging markets. This is the change in the strategy. You have to be more prudent, as a summary. Regarding to the clientele, to the customer, the most important change in behavior, I think, is the distribution channel, the new technology. The visibility of this business is becoming the more and more shorter. The on-the-book visibility, I mean, is every day more similar to the airline companies.
Last minute.
Last minute. And cancellation, which means that you have to improve your IT capabilities as much as possible, and you have to grow throughout the web. This is the way. Every day more, clientele used to book in our hotel by using internet, by using iPad, by using iPhone, which is the mobile is a part of our body. It's like the hand, you know. Then in future, should be every company should invest very heavy in technology and especially in internet. This is my...
Similar to what was said before, did you have to cut down some expenses? Did you have to lay off some people, or were you able to maintain the business and move on into a different way of operation to keep generating the revenues that are needed?
No, I think that we should keep in the same way.
You kept it the same way. Yeah. You were able to maintain it.
I think so.
Under these difficult circumstances.
Yes, I will, yes.
Before I go back to Mr. Kluch, what changes have you seen now in the customers other than this last-minute booking? Are they becoming more demanding, more choosy, more particular? Do you notice that as a result of this economic situation, or is it still the same pattern of profile of people?
I would say the clientele is changing from a more, I would say, due to the general situation, the client, the customer, wants more for less price. I mean, when qualifying the quality of service and balancing the price and product, in general, clients used to be more demanding in terms of quality because the value of money seems to be higher, you know.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Would you like to add something on that last point with regard to change in profiles?
Well, what I can say is that during the last 3 years, the consumer has been looking for value for money, and they have pressed very much on the prices because their pocket was suffering. At the same time, we have seen people who were going to top 5-star hotels, who have gone to 5-star hotels and 4-star hotels. For example, people like Four Seasons or Ritz-Carlton, they also suffer because a lot of the people who are going to their hotel, they have gone downwards. And this is something which we have seen, a pressure on the price without doubt. The only thing in these cases, I think the biggest mistake a hotelier can do is to put down the quality.
Yes.
Because if you put down the quality, you lose your future. And
let me just very quickly, before we move to our other colleagues and friends, ask you something with regard to Spain in particular. Your operations, both of you, are mainly in Spain, but they are also in Europe in general, and many of you have enterprises outside of Europe altogether. Do you see a difference in the attitudes with regard to Spain and any of these issues and the effects of the economic crisis on consumer behaviors here, different from what it is, for example, in Latin America or in Asia or in the Middle East? Maybe, yes?
yes, I think in Spain, with the amount of unemployment we have, the people is suffering the crisis much more. In South America, you have people from Brazil, from Argentina, from Canada, that in the United States, they have suffered the crisis a little bit, but there's a bit there's differences between one country and another, yes.
Would you confirm to that?
Well, as you know, Spain, well, NH has a very strong presence in Spain. In fact, the footprint is the highest one in Spain. We have roughly 35% of the total portfolio of NH is concentrated in Spain. We form part of the general scenery, a lot of hotels. Nevertheless, where we make money is mainly in Central Europe, in Benelux, in Latin America, which are quite different economies, quite different perspective, quite different perception. I mean, in general, especially in Latin America. Totally different to Spain. In Spain, everybody is under depression, you know. I mean, in terms of how things are going on in the future. And then in Spain is a higher unfragmented market, except Italy. Italy is higher, I mean, in terms of hospitality, urban sector in which NH is specialized. And, well, the competition is tougher, more concentrated in price, and really more tougher. Yeah. Perhaps is when we compare our clientele, our business, Spain to Germany or Belgium, nothing to do. Yeah. Totally different. Well, and especially to run the business in Spain, it's more difficult due to labor costs, something that we are everybody complaining about, that reform in the labor market, which is absolutely necessary. If we translate conditions from Germany, for instance, to Spain, if we could transfer the general legal framework of Germany to Spain, we will get an increase in productivity more than 30%, and EBITDA more than 50%, which is efficiency, which is productivity.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, let me move now to Michael Frenzel, a very good friend. So good to have you with us. Last time we met in Aswan, and it was a pleasure to see you there. And Mr. Petrocelli. Michael, of course, is chairman of the executive board of TUI, and TUI needs no introduction. And Charles is the former president of the Global Travel Service of American Express. Let's talk about the situation with regard to the travel, the moving people industry, so to speak. I have two questions, and I would alternate them between you, and then we'll see how we move from there on. what would you say are the key features of any successful tourism destination in the future? Destinations are struggling and competing with one another, and many of them are trying to find a way for themselves. You're the ones that are the suppliers of this industry and to these destinations. What would you tell them? What is needed in the future? And then I would like you to concentrate a little bit more on Spain, if you don't mind, Michael, and see how do you see Spain in that regard, positioning itself in the future, especially in the middle of a lot of competing destinations. So can I start with you, Michael, first of all? What features would you think a successful tourism destination in the future should start considering immediately, and then we move from there on to Charles?
Thank you very much. First of all, one general remark, just following this and then coming to your question. Despite all the challenges which are facing, and I think there are big challenges ahead in 2012, I believe there's no reason not to be, I call it cautiously optimistic. It's very important. Because there's otherwise a self-fulfilling prophecy if people behave in a different way. If you see what happened to the industry in 2011, and despite of this, despite some problems here and there, we managed, I think, to have a better result than the year before. We managed to develop a robust business model here. We managed a financial crisis, and the financial crisis, this is, I believe, the biggest challenge, will reach, I think, the consumer this year. This will influence consumer confidence, and therefore we have to be prepared for this. And by the way, very interesting, in a different way, we are, as you know, in all major markets, like UK as market leader in Germany. Germany is by far more robust, also consumer confidence than UK. A little bit to do with the financial industry, which is more or less there in UK, dominating the people.
And Germany is still the largest market in the world.
Germany is the largest one. But besides this financial crisis, I think we managed 11, and I believe also we'll manage 12. And of course, I think we managed also North Africa and Egypt. We own 60 hotels in Egypt, and I totally, I think, agree. We see a certain chance of recovery, but it lasts, as the minister told us, until 12. So 12 will be another year, clearly, I think, where we have to manage this. Besides this, I think, for me, and the biggest risk, talking about risk and opportunities, by far risk we haven't on the screen now. We are talking and discussing what's happening in Iran. You remember what happened to the industry when the Iraq war came. Hopefully, I think this will not come, hopefully, because there are events we can't, I think, manage then. But basically, I think, we are prepared and flexible enough, and I'm pretty sure it's the same with American Express and the other companies here. We are flexible enough, I think, to handle all the actual crisis. And we learned our lessons in the last 10 years. There was not one year where we hadn't any event. There was the ashes, there was tsunamis, there was a financial crisis. This is one part of our business, I believe, so we have to learn to manage crisis, which is the biggest challenge, and I think the biggest, on the other side, opportunity for the industry. Come back to your question, destination-wise.
But thank you for this note, because we need to set the tone right.
I think it's a very important one to give a certain, I think, understanding where we are and where we're going forward.
Thank you.
Coming to the destination, I believe it's very important that whatever the destination is, and we have more than 100 destinations, very important ones, smaller ones, bigger ones. It's very important that each destination develops its own profile. Otherwise, I think, if you start from our business model just to compare prices and hotel prices here, the customer is not aware, is he in Egypt or in Spain or in Turkey, I think. I believe that's the wrong business model. It's very important, I think, for all destinations and for the governments to develop the own profile of his own destination. In a way, I think, to more, first of all, analyze where the strengths are, where the unique parts of the destinations are, where they, in a positive way, differentiate from other places, and then to promote this in a very, very strong way. Mm-hmm. Biggest challenge, I believe, is the change in the consumer behaviors. At least in the more mature markets like Germany and UK, there are more and more consumers which are also looking at the destination in the way, are they under the view of environmental protection and sustainability, I think, in standards they like.
They're more conscious.
Yeah, it's very important there. So beside all the infrastructure questions, visa applications, which is very important, by the way, and the Minister of Mexico mentioned this, is a very good example, I believe. I think to facilitate visa is a huge, I think, more or less tool, I think, to increase traffic to the destinations. It's very important to develop an exact and natural profile. And I believe it's very important always to remember where the strengths of the destinations are. And there are different profiles, clearly. I think Turkey, for example, is a destination which stands value for money. Spain has a different profile. It must have a different profile. We call it is a well-being profile, because here is a combination of a very good infrastructure with a sound cultural and social environment, together with great, I think, landscape, natural resources. And to develop this is the more or less the secret of success of the destination.
Thank you so much. Would you like to, or maybe let's move to you, Charles, on the first part. What would you see of a destination? Then we'll come back to you, Michael, if you don't mind, on the specifically on Spain.
Yep.
But just to go back, what is it that you think destinations should be doing now to distinguish themselves and become more attractive?
Well, you know, when you ask that question, you talk about tourism in general, right? And in reality, you've got really two large segments in the industry, right? You've got the leisure industry and you've got the business travel industry. And they behave very differently and they respond to very different drivers, right? The business travel industry is directly linked to the global economy and the growth of the economy. The leisure industry is more resilient to a certain extent, but behaves very much to the price value. So as a destination, the first question I would be asking is, understanding very well the segment of customers that you want to deal with, because each segment has become very sophisticated. And thus, how you respond to that beyond the infrastructure, but the quality of the service that you provide, the price that you offer, the access that you provide becomes fundamental. I believe that one of the key drivers of our industry is technology. Technology is the next revolution of our industry. All our business in business travel, for example, 60% of it is totally online now. And everybody is moving on mobility. And mobility is not going to be only an extension of what you have on your laptop. Mobility is going to create and demand different applications because customers, both leisure and business, will want to have access to everything as they travel. Have the access to the information, have the access to decision, and have the access to execution. So every successful destination, every successful operator within that will have to have applications on mobility that will be able to respond that depending on the segment of customers you deal with. That, I think, is the biggest challenge from a model point of view that we have to face in the next, not in the next year, but in the next 3 to 5 years.
That's very useful. Since we have you there, and before we go back to Michael, Spain in particular,
well,
in that light.
I would say, like Michael, Spain is a very mature industry, a very mature country from a tourism point of view. Extremely mature, very sophisticated, very strong infrastructure, very large operators that have not only a presence in Spain, but globally, which allows them to do economies of scale, leverage their presence, etc. What Spain is facing at the moment is the current recession, right? The current recession with the impact of the last 2 years. And Spain is working very hard in order to recover from that. And I would agree with Sebastian on what he said this morning. Clearly, the tourism industry may be one of the drivers of the growth because it has the ability to rebound very quickly. And I think the focus that the whole industry has currently in Spain to really put tourism as the leader in one of those potential recovery opportunities is definitely the right one.
Thank you. Michael, would you want to?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because Spain had a special development last year, clearly here. So, but to start, before I come to this and how I see the ongoing year, let me perhaps say that Spain clearly, I think, is the oldest destination. It's by far still the most important for us still. Other destinations are growing, and there is an ongoing competition clearly between the destinations, which is quite natural. Yeah. And basically, But Spain had some advantages, clearly, and has a profile. And we always had the impact that if something happens in the eastern part of the Mediterranean area, I think the people are coming then to the western part. So there's a certain natural swing. But I believe that could not be a strategy in the long run. So the question is, I think, and we are very closely working together with some local governments and authorities here about the questions, how can we sharpen the profile of some regional destinations. We are involved, and I was part of the more or less group who discussed the Playa de Palma project in Mallorca, which is only one example that destinations have a life cycle. And therefore, after 30, 40 years, it's very clear, I think, that infrastructure, hotel infrastructure, has to be renewed. And what we are offering as the industry, because it's by far, we are bringing 1 million of people here to Spain, that we can more or less give advice, only advice, I think, how we see, how we can strengthen the attractiveness of some places. So what we need in Spain is clearly here, place by place in some regions, more or less reinvestment in some infrastructures, especially hotel infrastructures. And you know, I think my friends here are here, if you compare all the, out of economical reasons, a lot of Spanish hoteliers, my group, the other groups, are not invested, had not invested very much in Spain anymore in the last 10 years, 15 years, instead of Mexico or in the Caribbean areas, because it's very easy. The return is 4 or 5 years or 3 years there. In Spain, is due to the higher costs, a longer return. Economically-wise, all the money investments are going then out in the hotel industry, in the new destinations. But we need a certain quality, and that's, by the way, one of the reasons Turkey is booming, not because of the infrastructure environment or the other soft factors, but because of the hotel quality. They invested a lot there, very good and cheap hotels, 5 stars. And therefore, I think, what we urgently need, I think, that Spain keeps its place and advantage to reinvest also in the hotel infrastructure here, together with all, and together with the government, to develop programs, I think, to refurbish some areas, to develop programs, I think, to increase hotel quality overall. It's a very important part. I believe, by the way, Spain will have another good year. And we talked about Africa and the impact there. We have 60 hotels. I mentioned this before in Egypt. And we see the development. It's a slightly recovery, but at least it will last this year until 2012. And the only advice I can give, don't mix this more or less success. It's simply, I think, the impact of east to west that more or less customers are looking for alternatives, and therefore I think Spain will have another very good year. In principle, we have a problem also in Spain. In the Canaries, there's a lot of overcapacity. And by the way, if we talk about challenges in our industry from the business model, in my view, the biggest challenge we all face, beside all the questions, perhaps we can to it later, internet, other ones, is the overcapacity in the industry. There's a structural overcapacity in the flight industry, which is now starting to shrink with all the problems the airlines have, which is obvious. But there is a certain overcapacity also in the hotels.
In the hospitality.
And this is driving, I think, a development that our product becomes more and more a commodity. Mm-hmm. And then, if you're on a commodity, and in a commodity business, your margins are shrinking. And the only way, I think, to succeed is over the price, and that's the wrong way. And therefore, our strategy is clear, not, I think, to follow this commodity strategy. We want to differentiate the products, to develop products which are unique, exclusive, and where the customers, I think, see there's additional value in this. That's the only way to get out of the trap of this overcapacity in commodity. And I believe one of the big challenges also for some region in Spain is the overcapacity of very cheap hotel room.
Thank you so much, which is, of course, the capacity challenge is one that's historically accumulated over years, and it's not easy to deal with it. But thank you so much, and thank you for your very optimistic outlook. Let me, you raised very important issues, and I'll come back to them, if you don't mind, for the whole panel, particularly the issues of visas. And I think it's a very important issue that we need to tackle, and the issue of technology, as you had. But let me now move to Antonio Vesquez and Jose Antonio Tazan. You represent one of the most important backbones of the industry, the aviation industry, and you've invested so much of your energy, your lifetime commitment to this thing. Let me pose two questions to you, and alternatively we could deal with them and then we come back to them. One of the major challenges, Antonio, facing the air transports is the increased taxation. And we are seeing symptoms of that being mushrooming throughout Europe, starting with the APD in the UK and some of the proposed taxes in Germany and Austria. And now we're having, of course, the European pricing, carbon pricing policies. And it's a major, major challenge, particularly for the air transport industry. How do you evaluate the impact of these measures on the industry? And if you could kindly just highlight the impact of them, because it does not seem like governments are seeing that in a clear way, and they're seeing it as a very easy way of collecting direct cash with very little consequences on their local front. Well, let's start with this one, and then I'll go to the second part, which has to do with technology and what is affecting Europe. But let me start with you, Antonio, on this particular
Well, I'm
point.
extremely glad that you're making this question, because my personal feeling when the previous panel was developing is I thought it was dreaming, because three ministers of three very important countries were talking here about the top priority of the tourism in general for their countries. Certainly, I don't believe this is a case of the airline industry and the transport industry in general in Europe. As Europe is becoming absolutely hyper-regulated, and I don't think at all that the airline industry is taken by something to promote, because it's a driver of economic of scale, and it is something which is going to be helping the value chain of the tourism and the general economy in general, but much more the opposite. I think regulators are in a certain way taking the advantage of many million people passing through our hands. And it is a way of collecting money, very easy and very popular for the politician, by the way, because you're not increasing taxes. It's us, who are collecting the money from the traveler. And it is false. Mariano was commenting before that the hotel industry, it is becoming closer to the airline industry because of the management of the revenues. Welcome on board, because it is a nightmare. It is an absolutely nightmare. And at the end of the day, our industry is very easy. You are getting as much load factor as you can at the higher possible price. It is an auction. It is a permanent auction. And people who are traveling do not care whether they're paying the money because of the fuel price, because of the price of the ticket, because of ancillaries, or because you are becoming that sophisticated European trading scheme for the emission trading scheme in Europe, which at the end of the day is going to generate a nightmare, because there are problems of extraterritoriality, and we're going to have a lot of retaliation from the side of China, from the side of Russia, United States, and Latin America. Everybody are pretty much against Europe. So my vision, I'm naturally optimistic, but my vision vis-a-vis the kind of support that we could receive from the side of the government and the kind of priorities that the airline industry represent in the national economies in Europe is absolutely pessimistic for the time being. And on the other side, the competition we're facing...
Could you elaborate on that? Why are you saying this?
Well, because basically the airline industry today is you have two types of companies. You have the low-cost carrier, which are doing pretty well their jobs, and which are pretty much related to the tourist industry as well, more than us, every day more than us, because we cannot afford, and there is a certain replacement by tour operation, by low-cost carrier. It's a natural niche that is quite clear, very, very easy to understand, and the network carrier. For the network career, our life is pretty much depending on the long haul. So we're not competitive in the short and medium haul because of the competition of the the low-cost career, and because of the competition, and in Spain is dramatically more than that, of the high-speed train. It is clear
that, when you have around 800 kilometers around on your hub, high-speed train is highly competitive and well protected by the White Book of Environment issued by the European Union. So in the short and medium haul, we cannot compete, certainly today. And we cannot compete the network carrier because the cost structure that we are bringing, from the past, it is too high. So we're not competitive. Question is how much more the long haul. And in the long haul, we are competing with Middle East carrier, which are doing extremely, Gulf carrier, which are doing extremely well right now, because the top priority of those countries is to develop the airport. It's not only to develop the airport. They are building cities surrounding the airport.
Like UAE and Qatar. And
we're talking about Abu Dhabi, we're talking about Dubai, or
Qatar,
or Doha. So you have cities surrounding the airport. It's a top priority. They don't care about the navigation fees or whatever. There's a priority to develop the airline industry, and they're doing extremely well. And this represents very strong competition in the long-haul activity. If you go to Latin America, where you have the carriers, which are more likely the most profitable in the world today, they have a wonderful product because they have the same product that we have, all of us, and at the same time, they have a much lower cost structure. And they're very competitive. Our industry is not global at all. We have been the vehicle for globalization, but at the end of the day, if you understand by global, somebody who is producing everything in every country and selling the same thing everywhere, we are producing in our hubs. So the German in Germany, the French in France, and we are producing in our hubs. Yes. So we, IAG, we are producing in Madrid, we are producing in London. I would say T4 in Barajas and T5 in Heathrow. That's our production center. And we are producing everything on our own in our hubs. So that means we cannot compete with cost. So significant transformation has to come in the long haul. But for the time being, if we want to survive and to have the problem of remaking the long haul, we have to remake before the short and medium haul.
And of course, the taxing structure now is being more biased against the long haul than it is against the
You say the tax structure?
Yes, the tax structure.
Well, I mean, there is a tax that we are not at all afraid of, which is the income tax, because we're not making money.
No, I'm talking about...
well, having said that, these little things which could be like taxes are very threatening. And particularly right now in Europe, it's going to be a significant competition problem, the emission trade scheme. And it is, okay, I don't want to elaborate more.
Thank you so much. No, I think that's extremely important. But let me ask, you see the signs of agreement here. Jose Antonio, it's obvious that the future cannot be based on finding substitution for moving people in any other form other than actually strengthening the air transport there. And the taxes that are designed to encourage people to use other means or to discourage people from long-haul travel or any other forms of that is really missing the reality. So can you also, from your perspective, elaborate a little bit more on the impact of such taxes on the airline industry and in turn on the entire travel and tourism industry, moving people around?
Well, obviously we are not directly subject of those taxes, but anything...
Not in Spain, but yeah.
But indirectly affect us, because whatever affects our customers affect us at the end of the day. I will think that's perhaps a good moment to make an emphasis of what has been said about the network carriers and the low-cost carriers and the role they play, and the politicians trying to exploit as much as possible that transportation. I don't know if we as a customers, we do realize the big difference that there is between the usage of any of those network carriers when you want to go from A to B worldwide, compare with the low-cost carriers. Let me say give me a second what I mean. Today, we are used to go to any of those network carriers, whatever the channel it is, and say, I want to go from A to B to C to D, one single ticket, all that connectivity will take care of. You will pay once to that particular carrier, and you will be served. Your luggage will be moved from A to B to C to D, and you will collect that carriage, and you will get out and come back, probably following the same track. This is not a miracle. That is the reality of these companies working together to create the standards and investing heavily in technology. Wonderful. Now we are listening to these network carriers telling us, I cannot operate successfully in the mid-range short term. Then I will do my intercontinental travel basically. Can you explain to me how the traveler is going to go from a city in Spain to a hub of the main carriers, of the network carriers, move from there and go into somewhere else and get somebody taking care of their luggage, their connectivity, whatsoever? Because at the other end, you will have another low-cost carrier also, the only way for you to go finally from B to C. Who is going to manage that? Does the politician realize this? No. Competition is what it counts. Competition is good and it's perfect as long as it serves the main purpose, that is the consumer. The consumer is heading to a nightmare. And more important, happily and naturally, because it's very cheap. And always we think about the 22 years old backpacker, who cares? Right? But I am not anymore a 22 years old backpack guy. And I want to have a decent travel experience. I want to say that because I believe this industry, the government, is absolutely mistreating the network carriers, the so-called network carriers, simply because they cannot compete in cost-wise with the low-cost carriers, so-called. Of course, the industry will evolve, the low-cost carrier will become a less-cost carrier, a more an hybrid carrier, either created by evolution of the low cost or by the network carriers creating that as the only way to keep this industry moving in a right way. Then I think that taxation of this industry does not serve the purpose of benefiting the end consumer, if that was the question. I think another aspect we have to consider here when we talk about low cost versus network carriers, direct versus indirect distribution, is that the government authorities, the Department of Transportation, the European Community, they have to look for what is essential in this industry. That is to have the information about what is available as far as transportation, tourism is concerned, transparency of what are the real costs, and the ability to buy it through the channel they prefer. Today, we are moving towards an end due to I will say, economical problems, that will be a dream. That will be a dream. It is becoming almost impossible, even if the European Commission allows us or push things to happen, to have intermodality. Why? Because the worst thing you can have is a monopoly. And when you have a monopoly, they don't care about many other things. Then, a guy in Brussels today has a difficult problem to find out which is the best train he can take in order to interconnect with a plane who will take to his final destination. Why? Okay. Then, Okay, I will stop here. And
No,
if you
because
want to-
you have provoked both Michael and Antonio, and I don't want to deny them the.
Well, I know
Maybe I'll come back to you
Yeah,
after
but
you hear
you're-
what you have to say. Yeah. But you know, Michael wanted to comment on what you said. Please, quickly.
Yeah,
Yes.
let me make one basic remark about the industry, because we as TUI are also flying 140 planes. So we are partly in the industry in a different model, integrated model, and we are profitable in this model. But for me, the airline industry, and we are talking about this, is a phenomena, because it's the only industry I know where the majority, nearly all the companies I know, making losses. And despite of this industry is living. There are some companies which are jumping from chapter 11 to chapter 11, and it's going on and going on. Basically, the question is just something wrong in the business model or in the cost structure or what else. And we have really to talk about this. I believe, for example, your question was, how can we influence the government? It's not only the question of additional taxes or emission trading or this question. It starts with very simple things. There's not a European AOC. To give you an example, AOC means allowing to fly, I think, from each country to another country here. We have a fleet in the UK, we have a fleet in Germany, but legally, I think, for destinations outside of Europe, it's not allowed without a special AOC allowance, I think, to fly with, for example, the Thomson flight from our UK operations to, let's say, Caribbean, and use the same plane, I think, to bring German customers. Because every country in the European zone had its own AOCs. So what we need is a European AOC regulation. What we need is an overall regulation, I think, that Europe and all the participants, the market participants in Europe, I think, can have one AOC. So and then you can really start to have a fleet or a management of a fleet where you can really use the capacities not only on a national base, but on a European base. So first of all, it's very important in Brussels to get, I think, a movement going forward, a political initiative, I think, really, I think, also to get a union, European airline regulation, not a national regulation.
Yes.
We have national regulations still in Europe, and that's one of the biggest problems.
Thank you so much. Antonio?
Great point. I fully agree. I mean, I could be the whole morning talking about it because there are many wonderful things. I fully agree with that. It's not only with the AOC, but with everything, because it doesn't make any sense that we don't have a single European sky. We have a bloody emission trade scheme, which is going to cost the industry 3.8 billion a year, when we could be saving 4 billion just flying directly point to point, instead of being like donkeys, you know. And these are a lot of crazy things from the regulation point of view. And these industries are more fragmented than the capital. It is a fragmentation of the political power which are decided on top of the industry. And it is a big thing. From the operational point of view, I think there's a brilliant picture, the one you have been drawing, Jose Antonio, on the industry. You have been mentioning at the point in time that how to manage the equation in which you are going to fly short and medium haul from the origin to the hub, and afterward to the hub long haul, and from the hub long haul on the other side to the distribution at the end of the, at the end of the country. I think this is a real equation that the industry has to solve. I hope you guys don't discover so quickly from the technological point of view how to manage this luggage issue or whatever, because it is not the question that the airline industry, the network carrier, should be devoting their activity only to the long haul. I think is a bad picture. It is the right picture, the one you are drawing, but it's a great temptation, because we will not survive. You have to manage the feeding of your network, otherwise you will not survive in the long haul.
I agree.
Right? So the only way of making right combination between the first little jump and the second long jump viable is that the network carrier is managing on a low-cost formula, is managing the feeding of the network. Well, that is exactly what we are doing, but it was embedded in the beginning of your question. Say, what we could be doing if we were sitting down on the driving seat. You remember you were questioning that at the very beginning. Well, in my industry, I would love to be sitting down on the driving seat, because most of the problems are coming from the driving seat of the planes, right? So,
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you. We could of course go on particularly on the aviation and the airline industry and dedicate a whole specific panel for that. But unfortunately, we have very limited time. But Jose Antonio, I promise, if you can just react to that in half a minute, I would give you a chance. If you don't, do you want to add something to what is being said? But very, very quickly, please, so we can close this.
And to say that, in my opinion, the people does not realize also the drawbacks of having these low-cost carriers not connected to the network carriers. I agree 100%. The feeders are a basic thing. You can do it directly, as you have been doing it so far today, or you can do it as you are proposing today through your own hybrid, as I say it, hybrid low cost, because it will have some of the characteristics of the low-cost carriers, but it will be integrated in the network carrier in the way that still the customer will have the feeling that he is in a network carrier that takes care of his needs.
As I said, we can go on in this for much, much longer, and I'm sure the audience would have loved that as well. But we have to move quickly, and I have just been told that the organizers have been generous with us and gave us 5 more minutes as an exceptional because of the quality of this panel. That's what this little note says. So I'm going to go around, please, in conclusion, and just ask you a very simple question, and please, within 1 minute, just answer it. During 2008 and 2009 crisis, many governments were able to provide some stimulus packages for many industries. The ability was there, the will, the determination was there, and it probably was capable of averting worse scenarios. Obviously, this is no longer an option now. Governments are looking for ways to cut back on their expenses. My question to you, what public policies and measures under these current very difficult economic situations would you expect governments to do so that stimulation of the sector can continue to be credited for governments and countries and being realistic about it? If you were in 1 minute to tell us, what would you think government should do? In very precise, and I would like each one of you, please, if you don't mind, just say one thing and one thing only that you think is most important. Please, Michael.
There's one point which is immediately in my mind, visa application, which doesn't cost anything. For example, we have a big Russian business, and we have other businesses in China. We have an outbound license here. It's easy, I think. It's only, finally, I think, could be managed on a European level, I think. Visa applications, make it easy, I think, as easy as possible, and this will increase traffic and create growth.
Thank you so much. I'm very glad you said that because I was just having a little chat with Antonio before we come here, and I told him that UNWTO, with many, many partners, WTTC, World Economic Forum, OECD, ICAO, and many other partners, we have decided together to form a coalition to dedicate, and IATA is with us. I'm meeting with the new IATA Director General next month in Geneva, to dedicate the coming 2 years to just address the issue of visas. If the airline industries were able in less than 10 years to cancel their paper tickets and use electronic tickets now for everything, I don't understand why governments cannot achieve electronic visas and have people address all their concerns, security concerns and many others, but still make it very easy for people to travel from one place to another. So thank you very much. Please, yes, Charles.
If I were to choose 2, it would be very much linked to what Michael was saying, facilitate global exchanges. At the moment, there is a tendency among all governments to move back to a certain isolationism because of protecting their own economy. And actually, everything is related to protection of the economy and protection of security. That creates barriers to global exchange. And I think our industry demonstrated that it grew thanks to global exchanges. The second one that I would add would be access to liquidity. Access to liquidity funds the investments. And at the moment, there is tremendous pressure on liquidity because of the sovereign debts and because of the pressure that exists on the financial community. The access to liquidity, to me, is essential to our industry.
Thank you so much. Antonio?
Yeah, I would say 4. 1 + 2 + mine.
Yes.
which is a number 4th. And if I had to make a choice...
No, we'll make it number 1, just...
All right, right. So if I had to make a choice, it would be the level playing field.
Level playing field.
Yeah, it is from the regulation point of view, and much more sometimes from the operations point of view, specifically in our industry, safety, security, and there are a lot of things which are not equal in the different countries, not only the ETS we had been talking about before. So if I had to make a dream, I would say, we need a level playing field position, clear, well-founded, in such a way, you have to be competitive, but knowing what's going on, because sometimes you have to be changing your policy and your operation from country to country. In our industry, is a nightmare.
Yes, especially with all the connections that are there. Very good. Miguel?
Well, I'm happy that we have spent some time with the airline, because without seats, you don't have you cannot have hotels, you don't have a destination. Yes. So this is the important thing and the first step to the whole thing. In my opinion, the governments they should really get involved in what you said before, and Michael started with it, with the visas. For example, we are always with the same market. To open a new market like Russia, which has a tremendous potential, if we have the facilities like the Turkish have, in Turkey there's 2.5 million passengers from Russia every year. The amount of Russian we could have in Canary Islands, it would be tremendous. And I believe our government it has to fulfill the rules that we have in the European community of the depth, and I think our Prime Minister was expressing very well the efforts that we are ready to do. But I think they should simplify the systems in order to help a touristic country like Spain having facilities to get the visas. And secondly, I think in this country we need the government to get involved in a few things which are important. First, the regulation of the financial world. It's impossible to grow without money. Secondly, I think we have to regulate the hotel industry. They should give facilities to improve, not to create more beds, because at this moment I don't think is the right move, but give the facilities in order that all the improvements is being done. Some hotel companies, they have done these improvements during these years, but there's still many individual hotels that they need help. And if they don't have money and if they don't have support with the regulations, we will go nowhere.
And these slow times are very good opportunity for them.
And now are the opportunities to do it. In the hotel, we have an advantage that the airline, they don't have, which we have our clients 1 week or 2 weeks. So we can provide them the services to fidelize them to us. In our company, for example, we have 35% return clients, which is because when we have the clients at home, we can take care of them and keep up the quality. I think quality is the success of the difficulties that we're in.
You have the advantage of being able to control the experience much more from beginning to end, which they don't have, of course. Mariano Perez, please, just quickly, what do you like government to do if you want to aim one thing?
Just one. Well, just one. What the politician should do is to ease the condition of the market, more flexibility, and more possibility to do business, which means, in our case, they should be concentrated in a reform of the labor market as soon as possible.
I think that's precise and good. Jose Antonio?
Well, I think I'm here representing the distribution industry and this, or the subsector of the distribution within that industry. And I am insisting on what I have already said, but let me simply saying that if we are old enough to remember what we were saying 10 years ago, the convergence of the 3 Cs, communications, computing, and consumer electronics. Consumer electronics is here now. That revolution that is bringing, 220 million new machines, platforms, mobile, web-enabled in 1 week in the United States. 50% of the machines connected to the internet are now not Microsoft. Are the mobile revolution. This is an explosion. And the channels will multiply. And the complexity will multiply. And if the government does not remember that their role is to protect the consumer, this will be a nightmare. As a distributor, my request is to secure that travelers have the ability to shop their products, whatever the channel they choose to, with transparency as far as what they get, how much it costs to them, what is the service they will get at the end of the day. Yes. If that is not protected, we are going to go to the total chaos. Yes. And monopolies...
I'm not going to read it, I know what it is.
And monopolies will take over. And monopolies will take over. Because then that's my desire.
Thank you very much. That's a very, very good point. It opens up a whole new discussion, unfortunately. I wish we had more time for it. Charles, please.
I wanted to say, because the model is not linear anymore.
I'm sorry?
The business model is not linear anymore. That technology links with community. And we haven't spoken about community. But the model now takes a very different shape, where people access everything from everywhere, and the community aspect will play a key role in our industry.
Very good. Mm-hmm. I think, Sebastian and Jose Luis, you are absolutely right of making this shift. You lead the ministers' debate, and I try to lead, I sure was not leading here, the business debate. But what we were not correct about is that a distinguished panel like this, to be framed in 1 hour, 15 minutes, is just unfair. Unfair to us, unfair to the panelists, and unfair to the audience. We could go on and on forever. However, again, I was given another 5 minutes. So the organizers are very, very generous. So what I'd like to do is, again, but please let's limit it just to 1 point and 1 point only. What would you think the businesses should do, your own business, to contribute to getting out of this situation? We have talked about what you expect of governments. What should we expect of you, and how are you going to adjust to the new reality? What is your responsibility in this? Michael.
It was mentioned at the last point here, we have to transform our business models in the digital world, to the digital world. What's happening is, to bring it on the point, we are losing our monopoly of information. If all our business models, more or less in the past, were, especially the big tour operator models, were more or less participating on information. We have sole information about destination, about hotels. This changed totally. So what happened now, and I always call it, I think we are losing the monopoly of information, because with the Facebook, with the communities, our customers are interacting. And they have their own opinion. It's a totally different business model. Yeah. Beside all distribution, email, electronic distribution and online distribution, I think we have to be aware that the customer is changing. Yes. And we have not to forget, I think, what the customer thinks and how he's developed. And this is a very, very fast development in all the countries, and by the way, in all the generations, not only a question of younger people here. And therefore, the biggest challenge for the industry is to be aware of this development, to change their own business models, to become digital. That means also change the culture of the company from an offline to online company. Doesn't mean that we want to compete with Google. Give an example. We call it in our company a strategy Content Plus. We believe, I think, it's not a question to become a Google or an Apple or some other model here. It's a question, first of all, we have to have products, quality-wise, which are exclusive and which are not comparable. 1 point, to protect our margin and the business model. Second, we must have direct influence on the distribution, online-wise, which is very clear to have direct access to the customer, which is more a chance than a challenge, I believe. And therefore, to be positive and develop this, and develop the systems and to transform the company, this is the biggest challenge what we can do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Miguel?
Well, there is no doubt that there is a change we have to challenge. And I think we have been working to this change during the last 3 years. When we saw the storm in 2008,
Otherwise, we couldn't have survived.
we wouldn't have survived. So the improvement of your system, the improvement of the quality of the people who manage the yield, the tendency to keep the quality in bad times, I think this was our best investment to fight the future. And at the moment, with the internet, you have the client who is much more aware about what is going on. So the news, they come to the world immediately, and the client can have any information, even can investigate even your own profitability. But I think the only way is to continue to improve your systems and to improve your quality.
Thank you so much, Antonio.
And I wanted to just say that a lot of Spanish companies, hotel chain, we have gone to America, to different countries, and we have been welcomed tremendously because we are creators of jobs, which is very important. But when the difficulties has come, the target of taxes and the target of supporting the burden, it has been very much on us. And I would like these countries to realize that the future is with us. We are there not to spend some time, we are there forever, and we are dedicated to improve things, to help, to educate people, and we are doing a tremendous work in these countries. And I hope they will respect a little bit our position.
They will. Eventually they will. Antonio?
Well, we are already working on this kind of plan. Otherwise, as Miguel said, we would not survive. First of all, we were not crazy in getting debt in the past year. Yeah. That's the reason why we're living much more healthy today. And but clearly, our lines are to develop the long haul and to make it. We're making huge investment in commercial activity in every single potential origin or destination. We don't care. In the long haul, and a heavy investment in changing and replacing significant part of the fleet, making it the long haul fleet much more efficient in terms of fuel consumption and in terms of carbon emissions, which is a double positive effect. On the short and medium haul, I did based on time before. I mean, we have to make it less losing machine. I wouldn't say profitable, but mean a little bit less loser is going to be very important. And we are already in the project, and we have the ideas quite clear. And a third important driver of our future has to be to develop the hub of Madrid. And Madrid is a great airport, is a great hub, and for labor reasons, it has not been doing very well. And in the last, let's say, 2 or 3 years, because, you know, control people in charge of air traffic control or pilots or whatever. It's, I'm not blaming anybody, but we are working quite deeply right now and pretty strong with the public and private sector and everybody involved in such a way the hub of Madrid is becoming a modelic hub and is giving the attention that all our customers deserve.
Thank you so much. Thank you for also bringing it back to Spain and this focus on Madrid in particular. Charles, any last thoughts? Yeah.
I will just elaborate on the point of community that I was mentioning before. As Michael was saying, we are part of an information system now. And that information system goes, if you look at a map, there is no direction. Everything connects with everything. So the reality for a business like ours, how do you understand your community in a business way? I mean by that, your customers, your partners, the media, your prospects, your suppliers, the influencers that are all talking to each other, and how do you bring that together so that it is organized to support your business as opposed to go in all directions? Because it currently goes into all directions. People are making comments about everything, about all the time, and they connect, and they book, and they criticize, and they input, and etc. That is essential for us to understand as businesses as we move forward in the next 3 to 5 years.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Jose Antonio, you brought in a very, very interesting topic about consumer protection, and I think that would open a whole new discussion. But if you look at your own business and what you would like to do and how you would like to contribute, what would you say in less than a minute?
As one sense says, we will keep doing what we have been doing for the last 20 years.
Good job.
We develop technology for this industry. We develop technology that is converted into services to every single player, every single channel. Don't misunderstand us. We have more than 114 carriers outsourced to Amadeus, all right? And we support much more of the direct channels carriers. And we have products for hotels, for tour operators, for airports, etc. What we have to do is to keep developing 300-400 million euros per annum in being ahead a little bit of the needs of the market by developing the products that will be the services that we will provide to this industry to face the challenges of this inevitable evolution that the technology is bringing to them. They have to handle this new paradigm. They have to handle their customers. The problem is that the customers will approach them in a different way. And this is not up to every single player to develop that technology. It's too complex. The complexity of the technology is bringing to us is so big that we are even not conscious the complexity that we are managing because somebody else is doing it for us. Then we will keep doing this, providing that technology in our own benefit. I mean, we don't do it just because we are nice guys. But it is what we do, and I think we have served our customers, and we will continue doing that.
Continuity. Thank you so much. Mariano?
Well, I would say for us, the two main drivers should be one classical, which is quality, as Miguel said, and the other one should be necessarily technology in the new channels, the internet, that will be the more and more important in our activity, which means a change in your organization, in your philosophy, and your way of understanding your own clientele. But this is the big challenge.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we had a wonderful, wonderful debate. We could go on and on. I'm sure you would all want us to, but every good thing must come to an end. And I think anything like this now is going to be between us and a delicious cocktail that we're having after this. So Miguel Flucha, Mariano Perez, Jose Antonio Tazan, Antonio Vesquez, Michael Fletzer, Charles Petruccelli. Thank you so much for a wonderful, and please forgive me if I mispronounce some of the names. We all come from different cultures. Thank you so much for making this a very, very interesting debate. Thank you.